Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. Well, this is going to be a bumper one. The window is shut. Rovers head into the international break, and as so much has happened over the past week, we may need some intermissions, toilet stops, some drink stops, whatever during the recording. Players come, players go, but we're here to break down everything we can and maybe butcher some names along the way. I'm just glad that we sang the praises of McElhenney and Hyam last week and discussed how their partnership going forward was going to be as solid as a rock. But if you told me that after 4 games we'd be above Ipswich, Derby and Sheffield United, I would have bitten your hand off. But here's the summary of the week. The window closes as Marishta, I think that's his name, and Good Johnson add to the attacking ranks for significant fees, with Taylor Gardner-Hickman coming the new JRC type utility man. Travis finally makes his dream move to Derby and Buckley leaves for Saudi Arabia. Leonard departs in a surprise permanent move to Peterborough, with an even bigger surprise as Hyam makes a last-minute transfer to Wrexham in a twist that even the Hollywood script writers wouldn't have dreamt up. All of that, plus a loss to Norwich that I guess we will have to talk about. But back on British soil, Mark, what a time it is to be a Blackburn Rovers content creator, podcaster. I'm genuinely not sure what we are, but contrary to media speculation, we didn't hand in any transfer requests and you are still here.
Yeah, I mean, we were joking, obviously, when we put them out, but I'll be honest, last night, this morning, right now as I speak, I think I would have taken an offer to go to quite a number of podcasts if actually that was possible. But unfortunately, Mike, we do support Blackburn Rovers and we love them, no matter how many times they kick us when we're down and they upset us and they hurt us. And as you put out yesterday, that little wonderful photo where it showed the cycle of being a Rovers fan, we will fall for the trap again. But right now, I am in the absolute anger stages, I'm afraid. So I'll try to tone myself down and just keep calm and carry on.
Well, this is why we delayed it 24 hours, because we needed the window to close. Because of the timings of our personal life, we couldn't do it live at the time the window closed. I think if we had done, there would have been a bit more swearing and anger, as well as a lot of comments in the chat about it. But it's given us a chance really to sit back, get all the facts of who's come, who's gone, who we've got, so we can talk in a bit more detail. We will talk about the transfers, obviously, across the whole window, not just what happened last night. But before we do continue, we are very much aware of the allegations aimed at Rudy Gestede. We are recording this not long after seeing them on social media, but we feel like we don't have enough facts to make a comment. When we discuss any topic, we like to have all the information we can before we pass our opinions. This is no different, as horrible as these accusations are. But before we do get into the bumper part of the podcast, which is going to be transfers and owners and everything, there was a game that was played and we all seem to have forgotten about it. So if it's okay with you, Mark, can we relive the Norwich City game?
I'd much rather not, and genuinely, I had forgotten that was in this week. Yesterday, it felt like a full week, and I'm quite glad in some senses because having been at the game, it was, traumatic. So yeah, let's relive it again, Mike. I can't wait. Thank you.
Well, I've got the audio reaction. I didn't watch this one live. I was getting messages from yourself and other people during the game because I was away. It sounded horrendous, but let's get the initial voice notes from us.
Well, seeing as I've just sent you a voice note that was 2 minutes of silence, which is probably a bit more apt, I'll try again. It's just so contrasting from last week, isn't it? I thought we were poor from the start, really. We were off the pace, similar to the West Brom game, maybe not slightly quite as bad, but they could have been 3 or 4 up. Good job they couldn't finish. And then comes the red card. Strange decision by McElhenney from where I was. You can't argue with the red card if you give the decision because obviously he's not gone for the ball. And it looked like he was inside the box. I mean, if you're going to make a challenge, then try and win the ball and at least you only get a booking. But the way they were finishing, I'd have been tempted to just let him run through. But I thought we were off the pace across the pitch. It was a strange one, really. They almost played a diamond in midfield. So if you include Cantwell, we had 3, and yet we couldn't really get a kick. And they were dominating us out wide. Alabiosu didn't really know what to do because they were playing so high and wide against him. I thought Cardboard was poor, but he can't play inside, can he? We know he's very simplistic in his play. He's got to play almost like Adam Armstrong used to do, just pass the ball. He makes a diagonal run off the left for me. I thought second half, I didn't know if he was going to go 3 at the back or whatever he was going to do. But to be fair, they didn't really have many chances, and we probably had the better of the chances in the second half. But when you got down to 10 men, you've got to be more careful with the ball. I thought Ribeiro in particular was really poor in terms of giving the ball away very, very easily. But I thought the whole team surrendered possession too easily in the first 20 minutes of that second half. And then we go and get a couple of chances, and you got to take them. Got to do better than that. Then we try and make it a bit of a chaos game, bring Miller on, bring Gay. Didn't really have any impact. I mean, Gay was offside more in his little spell than I think everybody was put together in the whole game. But you look at the first set of fixtures now, 3 defeats, 1 win. Forget the cup game. It's not good, and we might be in transition, but we've got to sort it quick.
Well, that was a difficult game to watch, I'm not going to lie. I obviously knew the result before watching it because I was away, but I had access to the results, and lots of messages coming my way saying about how crap my mate Augustus was. But I'll be honest, when you're watching the game back and you've already know the result and you know all these little highlights, it's very difficult to watch it open-minded. So I was quite negative from the start. I was noticing little mistakes left, right and centre. The penalty I thought was a silly one from McLaughlin. It was a red card. He just should have let him go, but it was a rush of blood to the head, a little grab back, and the player's going to make the most of it, and that's what happens. That's just football. Second half, I thought we looked a little bit better, a little bit more structured, but geez, Gay, man, he just spends half his life offside. I was getting really frustrated with him, but the Gagbo situation with the chance that he had, okay, yeah, he should have scored, but I thought the keeper made a couple of good saves. Sometimes that happens, and you just know it's not your day. But there's a lot that needs to happen now between the international break and actually starting the next game for a lot of the players. They need to figure something out to get some sort of consistency, because it's been a tough start to the season. Obviously, window's not closed yet, so we need to make sure that we're keeping a solid base. With the squads, I don't want to see anyone leave necessarily, but I definitely want to see some players come in. I hope that we get someone come in that is exciting. It's gonna, this is Rovers though, so who knows what's going to happen. We still haven't explored the loan market, so whether something's going to happen there, but we definitely need some sort of consistency, and hopefully the international break is going to be a time where they've got a body of work to look back on, know what they need to work on tactically as a team, as individuals, and regroup ready for after that break, because something does need to change. I really struggled with mine. After watching it back, it is really difficult. So I'm going to lean on you a little bit more with this game than I normally would, Mark. The thing for me was it was just sloppy schoolboy stuff throughout the game. There wasn't one big thing that I pointed at and I said that was why we lost. It was just lots of little things across the whole team. Would you agree with that, or would you say there was something a bit bigger afoot?
I think looking at them as a start to the season, I think there's something bigger afoot. But it's difficult, obviously, because we know what's happened in the transfer window as well, which was quite ironic that you were sort of basically saying you didn't want to happen. What's happened? But I felt like it's difficult to judge a game when you go down to 10 men. That always messes it up. But so I kind of sectioned it into two halves, ironically. The first half, I thought we looked more akin to the West Brom game than the Birmingham game, and certainly than the Hull game. I thought we looked a bit lackluster, a bit slow to get going, a bit one-paced, careless, sloppy. I won't say overconfident. I don't think they'd come away from the whole game and thought, we'll beat Norwich, but they just looked, whether it was lacking in belief, I don't know what it was, but that little X factor that was there against Hull, that first to every ball, first to every second ball, was missing. and we were careless with our possession, even down to Yuri Ribeiro. I know I name checked in there, and I felt harsh at the time because he's been a 7 out of 10 every week. But even he was doing it, and he doesn't drop below those standards, and he gave it away almost every time he had the ball, it felt like. So I expect Cogbo to be a bit erratic. I don't expect that lack of control from him. And it was worrying. It really was. We didn't really look like we were going to create anything. They looked like they were cutting us open at will. I mean, if you're brutally honest, a player like Josh Sargent as well, I would have expected him to put most of them chances away. So they could have been, 3, 4 up at half time, and it wouldn't have flattered them.
No, I felt like the first half was a bit meh from us, like a little bit like there wasn't anything major I was looking at. And again, it's very difficult for me because I knew what was going to happen, and I was just waiting for him to burst through and get pulled back for the penalty. So it's quite funny because every time they were attacking, I was like, "Oh, here it is," and it didn't happen. But it seemed lackluster. It seemed like there wasn't any energy, and I was surprised at that because when you come off a 3-0 win, when you come off a win against Hull like we did, and we showed energy, we got pace, and we was opening them up. Now, I said last week that Hull played into our strengths, and that's why we did what we did. And Norwich, I think, would have learnt from that. But what I didn't like was we didn't seem to adjust to it, and it seemed like the energy wasn't there. And that just showed with how they pulled us open, and we just give the penalty away. And like they say, it's a horrendous time there's no good time to go down to 10 men, but it's horrendous time to concede a goal. But to go down to 10 men and concede a goal, the plan's got to change. Everything's got to change. The manager's got to go in with a completely different team talk. And it just completely scuppered us.
Yeah, I think, obviously, I was at the West Brom game as well, and it felt like they scored and nothing much was happening in the game, and then they did a job on us, and they tactically worked us out, and they just not sat by, but they sat in a position whereby saying, go on then, break us down, we don't think you can. It didn't feel like that with Norwich. It felt like Norwich were equally pretty poor, and they weren't having to do a lot to break us open. It was a poor choice by McLaughlin. Like I said in my voice note, I'd have let him run through because of the way they were playing. He'd made a poor decision to get the wrong side, and he compounded it. You don't expect that of an experienced centre-half. You expect that of a youngster. But he's had a really good start to the season. It happens. What concerned me was the atmosphere in the ground at halftime was so strange. Yes, we'd just gone down to 10 men, but there was just this apathy, this feeling of, well, that's not going to change. There was nothing you could cling on to from that first half where you thought, we can get back in this, or we can do this. Looking at the bench, we can bring him on and we can change it. We were all talking about, do you go 3 at the back? Do you bring Miller on? Do you've got Alabiosu, you've got Ribeiro, do you put Hedges at left wing? It was all that kind of thing rather than this is how we can positively change the game. So going into the second half, then you see the changes made. He just brings Wharton on and goes 4-4-1 basically. And I thought Tavares was poor. He did something I wasn't expecting. I thought, actually, he's going to try and change something as well because it wasn't working in the first half. So now you've almost replicated it, but weaker because you've lost Campbell in the 10. But actually, I thought second half we probably had the better of it. I thought that showed how average Norwich were, if I'm being honest. I thought all we seemed to do was raise the tempo a little bit. And we had half a chance. Then the crowd got up. And I think everybody started to think, actually, there's something in this for us. I felt a bit sorry for Cogbo. I think, I'd said at the beginning of the season I would give him a try on the right-hand side because I think it minimalises what he has to do. You just beat your man and whip it across rather than having to be too clever with it. But the fact he's playing on the right with Alabiosu means he comes inside all the time. And if anything, his poor technique is exposed a little bit more because he's got to be a bit cuter on the ball. That's not his game. His game, I don't know if anyone's watched tippy-tappy football with Mowbray. The way he speaks about Adam Armstrong, I'd said that for a long time, but the way he spoke about him was surprising because it was very honest. What he said was, basically said he's not got a football brain. He's just rapid. So what you need to do is make it very simple for him. And that's Cogbo right now. Put him on that left wing. Tell him to make the diagonal run across towards. Just aim for the penalty spot, Augustus. We'll play the ball to you. So it's not his fault because we were almost exposing his weaknesses where he was. And you could see the confidence draining from him. And that worried me because the fans had a bit of a pop at him. And I get it. We were all frustrated. But I actually thought second half, to be fair, I was a bit more positive in some senses than after the first because we showed some fight, some passion, and a way of getting at them.
Yeah, I mean, the second half, it did have an air of inevitability that Rovers would do Rovers things. For me, when I was watching, again, I knew what the result was going to be. But I was surprised about how many times we had the ball in that final third. And I thought to myself, it's just compounding the problem all the time that we just didn't have that player that was making the right runs for the wingers. The wingers weren't doing the right things. It just seemed it was completely disjointed. And I completely understand what everyone was getting at with Cogbo, but I agree. I did feel sorry for him a little bit. I think the chance that he had, I thought was good goalkeeping. You should score ultimately, but the goalkeeper's been quite quick getting himself up. I think when the ball's dropped to him the second time, really, he's got to be a little bit more instinctive and just hit it. He did delay probably a little bit too much to allow the keeper to get into position.
Yeah,
but when I watched it, because I'd had all these messages, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be horrendous. I looked at it, I was like, I kind of appreciate the goalkeeper side a little bit more. I just think he needed to be that little bit sharper.
Yeah, and I think I'm not blaming the supporters. We were frustrated, but I think the game he'd had and the lack of confidence he was displaying meant that the ball fell to him and everyone's going, go on, the atmosphere is building, and it felt like it wasn't, but it honestly felt like 10 seconds that he had the ball at his feet, and you could see his brain going, this needs to go in, and the pressure,
instant pressure.
And what he wanted to do was make sure it went in, and by doing that, you've delayed too long. The keeper spread himself. You've hit him. That's the perfect example of a goal that somebody who's, when Sammy Smodics was knocking them in, week out, that goes in without him thinking about it. Cogbo, if he gets on a run, probably the same. It's not just about a technique thing. That's about confidence in yourself and an instinctiveness, exactly like you said. He overthought it, and I think that was just because he was struggling, and he's lacking in confidence right now.
100%, and the atmosphere at Ewood has always been a little bit up and down. It's over the last few years. I think a lot of us, me included, we find it very easy to get negative very quick. And that is because of everything that's gone on off the pitch and what's happened over the last few years. It's very quick for us just to feel very negative very quick. And I think players like him that have come into this situation, I think it's very difficult for them to kind of adapt mentally, which, like you say, it's not a slight on us fans. Us fans, we want the lads to win, but it's human nature to get frustrated when you see them making these basic mistakes that they should be better at.
Yeah, and I thought I was surprised he didn't change it earlier. I think it was becoming glaringly obvious that it wasn't working. That said, we had the better of the chances at that stage. I felt he should have done something a bit sooner, albeit when he then made the changes. I mean, Mike Targay's never made an impact for me as a sub. I might be wrong. I can't remember a time he has, though. I think he comes on and he looks frustrated. I wouldn't say he throws his toys out the pram, but I think he doesn't know how to play as a sub, and he almost comes on with this annoyed, but not annoyed in it, I'll prove you wrong. And it's just...
He doesn't channel his energy properly.
He just doesn't, does he? He looks frustrated. He looks like he could get sent off. He's stood offside every single time. It's becoming ridiculous, really.
So is he about to make a wish, Maktar?
I just think I just think if you're going to play Maktar Gay, you've got to play to his strengths or don't play him at all. Some players, Sam Gallagher, not talk about him for ages, but Sam Gallagher is a player that would try his best in various situations. Might not be good enough. You might not think he can do X, Y, and Z. But he would come and try his best to fit into what you ask him to do. Gay can't do that. Gay, again, a bit like Cogbo right now, needs the game simplifying, hit the ball long to him, tell him what he needs to do. Don't leave him to be thinking about it. He certainly can't run in behind. And that made it all the more surprising going into, maybe not because of the timing, but I think I get why people say keep him as a plan C. But I certainly, after the Norwich game, I thought, for me, if he moved on tomorrow, I wouldn't be upset now because it's not going to work like this. It only works with Gay in a specific set of circumstances. Make him feel loved, make him the focal point. He's not going to fit into you. You have to fit to him.
I'm going to get into Gay a little bit later when I actually talk about Harry Leonard leaving. I've got a couple of things to mention to do with Gay. And this isn't an I told you so from us, but we could see that this was the kind of player he was. And we can't carry players like this. And when you watch a game like this where he comes on, this is his time to shine. This is his time to say, look, I'm here. You've got to play me. And when he comes on and he has that kind of performance, what's the manager supposed to do? He's not going to say, oh, do you know what? We'll change the game for you. He's got to be a big boy. He's a professional. He's got to come on, prove everyone wrong, prove us wrong. We want to be proved wrong. And he just came on and he just was not good enough. And we got to see, obviously, Tavares for a half. He didn't really cover himself in glory as well. So we're trying this game. It felt like there was just too many 5 and 6 out of 10s on the pitch, and that we don't have the kind of players like your Schmodics, like when Brereton Diaz was firing, and going back to the Adam Armstrongs, where they could just take the game by the scruff of the neck, go and get a goal and change it. We haven't really got that right now. So everyone needs to be playing. We can't afford to carry a player. And then when you go down to 10 men, and then you've got Gay coming on playing how he played, and other players not exactly playing to their confidence, you're relying on luck to get a goal, and we just haven't got that luck.
No, and I think what this showed me, which I think we already knew, was that there was no excuse for it. You couldn't say, oh, they'd had 3 games in a week. It was they'd had an injury. They were carrying knocks. If anything, this was a perfect setup. They'd had a really good confidence boosting game at Hull. He was able to have a full week's training and roll the same team out again. There was no transfer speculation. There was no, Hashi going to leave? Is he not? Is his head going to be on it? Everything really was uninterrupted. They'd had a confidence boosting win. So the only thing I can point to was what we talked about all season, which is when you've got players new to the league and quite young and inexperienced, they're going to be inconsistent. And that's not a criticism of them. Doesn't mean they're not good enough. But Tavares is a perfect example. I thought he was getting slightly better each week because it looked like he was getting more confidence potentially, but also confidence in himself fitness-wise because he's not had a pre-season. I fully expected at Norwich, do you know what? I'm expecting a really good performance from him here. And actually, he didn't. Now, that's not because I think he's appalling. I think it's just he's not played that many games. He's new to the league. You're going to get up and down games. Unfortunately for us, there was a number of them. What frustrated me more was Norwich were beatable, even at 6, 7 out of 10.
And they were there for the taking. I mean, the goal at the end, it was pretty poor defending, but
great finish. But it was.
It was pretty poor defending. It was a great finish. We were obviously trying to get at them. It was very similar to the Blues game where we were just trying to get at them and we just left ourselves open at the back, which obviously is now going to be a concern now that we've lost another centre-back. But anyway, was there anyone that came out of this game, in your opinion, that covered themselves in a little bit more glory than the others?
It's a glory. I thought Campbell continued to show endeavour, continued to show, even though it wasn't a game where it was flowing for him and it was all coming easily. He didn't get overly frustrated at his teammates. He did try and encourage them, and he did get a bit frustrated, as you would do. But it wasn't like Bruno Fernandes does, where he's being petulant to them. It was a game where it wasn't flowing necessarily for him, but he maintained his work rate. He maintained trying things. He maintained trying to get on the ball. And they're sort of qualities that other people externally have questioned about Campbell. I don't think we have. We've questioned just his ability to perform week in, week out and get the numbers high. But yeah, I think if you're going to look at positives, Obiasu did okay again. Thought Toth did all right. You know, he's not had another shocker with his feet after 20 minutes at West Brom. Clearly learnt. Thought Wharton came on and did okay. Yeah.
What do you think of Marishta when he came on?
The acid test for me was he came on when, we were attacking a little bit, but nobody was flowing, were they? Nobody was on top form. And he was pinged a lovely crossfield ball. And he's going to get, one of them, when that's happening, the ball's coming out of the sky. You know you're trying to make an impression. You've not been on the pitch that long. You can see a big, ugly right back coming towards you. That's very easy to take your eye off the ball to miscontrol it. And his touch showed me, and the way he controlled it, and he had confidence in himself, told me actually he can make an impact for us. There was nothing amazing from him, but I saw that and I thought, actually, you've enough confidence and ability in yourself to start and start playing regularly, which was a positive. Don't get me wrong, I'd have liked him to have took it past 43 people and curl in the top right corner. But he showed me enough to say, actually, he's potentially within a 20-minute cameo, somebody that we can say he is 28, isn't he? He's experienced. I think it's somebody that you would expect a 28-year-old to come in and just perform. I think we can possibly do that. The question mark will be he's never played in England. So,
And before we get into the three-word reactions, the reaction of the team was quite negative, obviously, at the end. Management weren't too happy. For me now, it's how they react. They need to be angry. They need to feed off this now. They go into the international break after 4 games where they've only got the 1 win. And they need to find something, and they need to train hard, because the harder they train, the easier the games will be. We've got the squad now, the window's shut. So this is, some players can still leave internationally, can't they, over the next 24 hours. But generally, it is what it is. We can obviously get some free transfers in. But there needs to be an element of anger in them now. They need to be frustrated. They need to want this game against Watford to come quickly. It's going to be away, but is it the kind of game we can go and do something in? We'll obviously discuss in a sec. But what was the general 3-word reactions that caught your
eye? Another toothless display. Not clinical enough. Take your chances. Frustrating as always. Very similar themes. A couple about the ref, but Daniel McFarlane learn the offside rule. For those who correct me when I say more than 3 words, learn offside rule. And the one from Tom BRFC was relegation battle incoming. I think, yes, it's too early to say that, but when you've had 1 win and 3 defeats, we've scored 1 goal at home in 2 games. We've conceded 4. It's not like we can see loads coming off the bench. For me, directly after the game, my actual feeling was that absolutely confirms to me, not that I need it confirming, we need a striker and we need some championship experience in the middle of the park. They were my honest opinions directly after that.
Well, I think we should get into that now, because there's no point really talking about the Watford game. We can do that next week. And the international break, I personally think, is coming at a good time, because now, the management now and the coaches, they've had a real good body of work. They've had 5 games, including the cup game, to look back on. They've seen enough of certain players. They've got the new players coming in that they can obviously judge. They can imprint what they need to imprint on them, but ultimately they've got that body of work to look at and say, right, this is what went wrong. This is what we need to do. I think Ismaël's got to look at himself with some of the subs. I think what you said earlier, I don't think they work quite as well. Eustace was really good at making subs at the right time. I feel like Ismaël waits that little bit too long, but it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, before we get into the transfer window, because it's obviously the UK one shut. There's 24 hours until the other leagues shut, isn't it?
Yeah, SPL shut late last night, didn't it? But yeah, broad.
Yeah, so there could be potential of movement of players leaving, and free transfers obviously can still come in. So there is potential, like you say, Gay could be on his way, and this just all feeds into his frustrations and so on. That's correct, isn't it?
That's my understanding. I mean, you can't imagine that because, like you say, we can only bring in free transfers. But right now, nothing would surprise me.
No, so let's get into the transfers. So we'll go through. Do you want to go through departures or do you want to go through arrivals first, based on?
Let's do arrivals.
Let's do arrivals. Okay, so we will go from apparently the highest value. We'll go lowest value to highest value. So we've got the loan transfer come in yesterday of Taylor Gardner Hickman. He is effectively JRC. Plays similar positions to what he did. I've spoken to a couple of Blues fans, and they're saying that this should be he should be a really good squad player for us. I'll be honest, there were some patronising comments, like he can't get into our team, but he'll probably get into yours kind of comments. But
yeah,
generally,
I've seen it.
Yeah. So, but generally, he seems to be coming with quite a good rep. We can't judge him yet, but are you seeing anything that you can be excited about?
Yeah. Well, I think excited might be the wrong word, but I'll be honest. I felt very sorry for him given the timing. I think I've seen similar comments to you. I've seen Blues fans turning around and saying he'll do a job for Blackburn. Bit patronising. But yeah, saying that he basically can play anywhere. So I'll be honest, my immediate concern with that, and it's difficult not to do them separately, but Ismaël's comments after the Bradford game were very telling for me. He said, I've found a lot out about people I've watched, and some people aren't ready yet. Since that game, Goddard has come onto the bench. Michalski's not been back on the bench. And then he made comments the other day about we've got two young players. He was asked about pairs. He said 2 young players, goalkeepers. One's further along than the other, but we think that the other one will be here for the future. So what he's basically saying is Goddard's a bit better at the minute, but we think Michalski's the future. Goddard's just doing a job. So Michalski's going to play some football. So he's saying he's not ready yet. Montgomery's played little after that. Came on against Hull and did okay. Didn't come on. And I think this one will take his spot on the bench. And Maurice Sheets has come, and we've seen him already take Tyjon's place on the bench. So the only Blackburn Rovers Academy player is Scott Wharton that I think is going to get, really, bar injuries, anywhere near the team. Maybe Hayden Carter then when he comes back into it. But that worries me because that's what we've been told. So in terms of, I've gone off a little bit there, but in terms of Taylor Gardner Hickman, what I think he does is reduces the pathway for Montgomery. I'm fine with it, and I think we need experience, but I wanted somebody who could come in and potentially play every week. Now I know that they've got high hopes for Baraji, the next one we'll talk about.
Well, that's the thing. So I did find it a little bit of a weird signing. I didn't know whether it was a panic signing, but haven't we got the option to buy? It's not. We've got to buy. So
I
it's
just
only
don't
an
think.
Option.
Yeah, I mean, what they've said again, Ismaël's comments, he talks about how they only want to do loans if he was basically saying if they can't get the paperwork done in time. So it looks like he's all but signed, bar having a shocker or something. And then the same with Baraji. The reason that they've done loan to buy Baraji, they would sign him, but they just want to check his injury. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we'll go on to Baraji now. There's a guy on Instagram, and I think we'll possibly link him into some stuff moving forward. He's called F_scout_social. I think he's a Rovers fan. He's actually done quite a bit of work on judging where the players fit. He acknowledges that their leagues are different that they've been playing in, but Baraji actually scores really, really highly. So you can see in terms of data why they picked him up, and they really, really think he's going to be the Dogs. They see him alongside Tronstad now. He's the one they think will hit the ground running.
I was quite happy with the Baraji signing. I was quite glad with how they did the business and got it done. I mean, I wish it was done earlier, obviously. I wish it was all done earlier.
Yeah.
But I thought it was quite a sensible way of doing it. Obviously, he went and signed his deal, so then it couldn't happen for free at the end of the loan. But I was quite happy with it. Obviously, we're not scouts or anything, so we just go straight onto YouTube and look through social media, all the links. But he looked quite a tasty player. He looked like someone that was going to offer quite a lot. And like you say, there's people saying that he scores quite highly. So I was quite happy with this situation.
Yeah, and I think people have had a pop at the club unfairly on this one because they're saying, oh, they've messed it up. It's come for a medical. We found an issue. We really want the player. We've thought about it. We've renegotiated and said, listen, we want him. We just want to be sure this issue isn't a massive one. They've renegotiated a really sensible, like you said, sensible way of doing it. I actually think the club deserves a bit of plaudits for this one, the way they've stuck to it and renegotiated.
Yeah, I agree. We don't know what he's like as a player for us. I think it's going to be quite a while, realistically, until we see him. But I think the deal could be one that proves to be not necessarily successful, but probably a little bit more risk-free than others. Moving on to Sean McLaughlin, approximately between $500,000 and $1 million from Hull. Let's take the sending off out of it, and let's take the fact that his partner, that he seemed to be striking up a great duo with, has now left. I think he's had a good start to his career, and I think this one, I personally believe he's an upgrade on Danny Bart, or he will prove to be. What's your feelings on McLaughlin?
Yeah, I think if we take him and Bart as a pair, if you like, Bart, he's not had a great start at Derby. What we saw from him last year at Rovers, I think he performed better than I expected. I think what Bart brought to us last year was great, and I would have liked to have re-signed him for that purpose. McLaughlin, I wasn't sure what to expect. I saw a glimpse of him in one of the Spanish friendlies, and I thought he looked off the pace. And for me, Wharton looked more advanced at that stage. So I was surprised on the first game of the season when it was him. But ever since I saw him at West Brom, I've been really, really comfortable with him. That one moment of madness where he's compounded it aside, I think he's 28. He's left-footed, which meant Hyam could play on the right side. He's still got championship experience. So he's all the things that we liked about Bart, but younger and left-footed. And for me, you know what I've said about Hyam, and I'm not doing this to wind anyone up, but I've said for ages, bringing that left-hand-sided centre-half in, that means Hyam can go on to the right, makes him a better player as well. I was very, very happy with what I've seen from McLaughlin.
Yeah, it was really annoying last week when we came away from it talking about how they'd struck up this really nice duo, only for one of them to disappear brutally from us. Yeah, I've been quite happy with McLaughlin. We've always said it's quite telling when fans come into the comments of a signing player or one that's leaving their club coming into yours. And everything was really positive. It was very similar to the Smodic signing. We had a lot of fans coming in saying you've got an absolute gem here and stuff. So you just get this feeling with the player when they sign, when the fans come in and they start discussing that player positively, that you know that you've potentially got a gem on your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I wouldn't have said gem from what I read about him. I thought this was actually similar to the Gardner-Hickman one, where they were kind of saying wasn't guaranteed to start every week. Surprised we let him go for that amount. Obviously, we've not signed Gardner-Hickman for permanently, but kind of similar vibes, weren't they? That I'd have liked to have kept him around, think he did a job. Nobody said, yeah, glad we've got rid of him.
No.
Probably, to be fair, similar things to what we've said about JRC, maybe. Although I think we kind of felt we could move on from JRC, whereas I wasn't seeing many comments about McLaughlin or Gardner Hickman, to be fair. It's going to be me that butchers his name, by the way. I'm going with TGH right now.
I just realised it's quite funny how things have changed. We're talking about signing players from Hull City and getting relatively excited about a player that wasn't necessarily going to play for Hull, and it's just funny how far we've fallen. But anyway, let's carry on. Ryan Alibiosu, again around a similar kind of fee for as McLaughlin. Obviously, this comes in when Britton was leaving, so it was pretty much nailed on that we knew he was going to get game time. For me, he seems to have started relatively well, and that is the term relatively. I didn't have a hell of a lot of expectations of him. He was coming in for not much money, and he was an Arsenal product, but he hadn't really shown much since. I've seen, from what I've seen of him, I think he's going to be a good player for us. And when I say good player, I just think he's going to be solid. I don't think he's going to necessarily give us headaches. I think when he plays, he's going to give us something going forward. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. It's this obviously new ethos that you can see that we're trying to play, and he fits into that mould. He seems to be striking up quite a good partnership on the right-hand side with players that are there, overlapping quite well. As far as being an upgrade on Callum Britton, he's obviously not in my eyes. I was a big Callum Britton fan. But the defensive side, how do you feel that's been with him compared to Callum Britton?
Well, I mean, I'm slightly different to you because he came in, didn't he, when Britton, the speculation was there, but Britton was still there. It was Miller that came in almost identical timing. And I actually thought, age-wise, the fact that he's not played as much, that Miller would be the first choice, and he would maybe more of one. I know there's only a year apart, but more of one that took time to grow into the team. I was very surprised when he was the one who started at West Brom. What I'd seen of him in pre-season, I wasn't overly impressed. I'd seen him at West Brom, and his touch was poor. After that game, I'd seen Miller for 5 minutes, and I thought, well, he can control the ball. I'd put him ahead of him for me. And I completely have changed my mind. I think he's not better than Callum Britton. No, might grow to be. But I think he's big, he's strong, he gets up and down. His pace is a real asset for him, both offensively and getting back. Again, I'm honestly not trying to wind anyone up, but I think the fact that Hyam was alongside him helped him because he had an experienced defender able to cover and to talk to him. I think he was a pleasant surprise, and I agree with you. I think he will be a very steady player for us at worst, potentially a good player for us. He's different to Callum Britton, so it's difficult to compare them. I think he could have some elements of his game, and I think he already does now in terms of pace, but I think there could be elements where you go, actually, for the style we're playing, he fits better down the line. Pleasant surprise, I'd put him in the category of, but not an upgrade.
No, I mean, we knew Callum Britton was going to go before obviously signing him. I wasn't as against him on the West Brom game as others. I didn't think he was as a fish out of water like some people thought he was, but you could just tell there was a rawness, and he wasn't necessarily there. But he does seem to be settling in. Quite nicely, a little bit better than we thought. One person that isn't necessarily setting in is Dion Deneuve. Now, Dion Deneuve's come in to be on the left-hand side. He played a lot of left-back. He comes in, same club, same kind of fee again, as Alibiosu. He's been signed to effectively be a left winger. Again, very pacey. Not necessarily got the strength. He's got a certain look about him as well that looks like he's a bit of a scallywag, as they say. But I haven't seen anything from him that necessarily excites me. But there's moments. There's moments on his positioning. There's moments where he runs into the box, and you can tell there is something there. But he's now got to do something more in a game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. put him in the Hedges category. And I don't mean they're the same player. I just mean I think he will do a job on one side for you. You need the creativity on the other side. I mean, he's predominantly played as a left back in his career, hasn't he? It almost felt like he was replacing Owen Beck for me, in that he's a left back, but he can do a job. So if we're playing Ipswich and we think we're going to be under the cosh, then him or Hedges plays on the left-hand side of midfield is where I thought it was going. I think he's struggled a little bit, but he's 24, he's come to a new league. It's to be expected.
It probably didn't help the fact that he got a massive whack on his, against West Brom. That's really going to put him off.
Yeah.
As much as we don't like to admit it, if you're getting a smack and you open your head open on the first game, he's going to set you off a little bit. But I have seen a few little movements from him. His goal against Everton was a nice run in. He delayed his run. He timed it nicely. It was a good finish. I've seen a couple of things from him. I'm not necessarily too disappointed with him so far. We haven't really seen enough. But considering who we've signed since then, he's going to struggle to really get in the team. So it's going to be interesting to see how he takes his chance when it comes. Axel Henriksson, just under $1 million, big lads, playing that attacking midfield role. How do you feel with him? I saw him in the West Brom game. I fell in love with him straight away because the first thing he started doing was just kicking people and trying his best. And as much as I don't like the fact he was being quite clumsy, you could just tell he had an energy about him. But from the limited time you've seen him, what's been your thoughts?
Doesn't look ready. I think he's very inexperienced in football, let alone in the Championship. Likes to get forward, likes to get in the box. Looks like he can handle himself. To say he looks about 6 stone wet through. I mean, if you look at his record online, I'm not got it in front of me, but the amount of bookings, I think he averages one every 2 or 3 games. And you can see why against West Brom. I felt a bit sorry for him. He got thrown in at the deep end. Sometimes it works, doesn't it? He's got Campbell ahead of him, so I'm all right with it. The issue will come in if Campbell landed a long-term injury. I think the plan with Henriksson is for a future, not for now. So I'm okay with it. I wouldn't be okay if he was starting every week right now. I think he's way off it at the moment, but not for ability-wise. I just think it'll take him time to settle. But in terms of raw attributes, if you like, and physicality, and can he cope with the Championship, the robustness of it? I think he probably can. I
think he's built for the future. He's built for the future, and he's someone that they obviously thought enough of to pull the trigger when they did for the amount that they did. Because, like I said, the fact that it's such a come down for a club to be spending, around half a million to £1 million, and that's considered a lot of money. For us to actually spend that says to me that they're building something, and from what we can see, it's going to be for the future.
Yeah, I won't. If we get to May and he's played 10 games, I won't go at the end of the season review the transfers. Oh, he's been a horrific disaster. I think it's more judge him at the end of next season. Really, I think he's been bought for that. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me the way that things are going if they actually see him as Campbell's replacement in the summer. But I don't judge him this season. I don't think he's expected to come in and make a massive impact yet.
No, we'll judge him when he leaves. It's similar to the Sigurdsson situation. You give him as much time as possible, and then when they leave, you then judge was it a successful move or not. But he's a young lad, and he's built for the future. Now, getting into our 3 effectively main signings, these ones were all for us, significant fees of around 2 million plus. This is what the kind of fees we've been talking. The first one to come in was Sydney Tavares. I'll be honest, not been impressed with him so far. He did come in, he got injured quite quick, and then he's showing, again, to use the term glimpse, he's showing glimpses of quality, of being able to play the ball. But then there's other times where I just look at him and go, I'm not sure you're worth this money. He's definitely someone that's going to have to settle in. It's going to be similar to the Tronstad, where when we signed Tronstad, we looked at him and was like, are we sure? Are we sure? And then it just clicks. I think it will click with him, but to what level, I don't know. How are you feeling about Sydney?
I think I've seen enough in him that he's got a decent range of passing and he's got the ability to pick people out. I like my midfielders to be able to control a game. He's not able to do that yet. And there are large periods of games where the game just passes him by. And I take Weekend as a perfect example. If you watch the way that at Norwich set up, they played with a really wide diamond in midfield. And actually the two wide players played far forward. So if you look at that on that basis, they've got a defensive midfielder, an attacking midfielder, and no one in the middle of the park. We had two defensive midfielders in Cantwell. And for the majority of that first half, it looked like they had extra men in there, not us. He didn't smell that. He didn't smell to get in and get involved. He didn't take the game by the scruff of the neck. Things he's got to pick up. Not ruling him out right now. I think the passing ability is there. He needs to settle, and he needs to learn that he needs to grab hold of games at times. But I don't think he's here to do that necessarily. I think the plan, I think Baraji's going to be the one that's supposed to do that, go and harass people and control a game. I think Tavares is more of a Tronstad, that they expect him to pick the ball up, ping a few passes, spray it out there, do the nice, pretty stuff, simple stuff as well. But if you're doing that, games can't pass you by. So he's got to learn that quickly if he's going to play every week.
No, you can see he's going to do that link-up play. He's got the size. He looks like he's got the physical abilities to play that role. Again, this is the problem when you sign this many players and you have this many players leave. It's very difficult for them to settle quickly. And because we are in this transition period, I don't want to judge him too quick, because you can tell there's a player there. You can tell there's a player in all of them, but he's definitely someone that we spent some decent amount of money on. So you would expect to get some sort of return from him. And it's going to be interesting to see how he settles in after the international period and going into the next few games, because he's going to have to be the main man in the middle for a bit.
Yeah, and I think the problem we've got is these players are going to get judged a little bit unfairly, because they need to be given time. They need to be given time to settle and time to adjust. But we need them as fans and as a club to make an impact now. But if you look at their ages, Hayden Carter's 25, Buckley's 25, JLC's 25. We've got here Baraji 24, Taylor Gardner-Hickman 23. McLaughlin's 28, so he should be coming and hitting the ground running. Denev's 24, Miller's 24, Henriksen, Tavares, and Gudjonsson, who we'll come on to in a second, are 23. 23-year-olds breaking into the team, breaking into a new league. You shouldn't be expecting, just like I've said of Henriksen, we shouldn't be judging Tavares until the end of next season. But the fact that actually he needs to come in and play and perform now means we're going to judge them. Because actually, in theory, we shouldn't be judging him until the end of next season, but he's got to come in and make an impact. So we have to judge what we see. And the fact they're playing him at the minute as a starter tells us we should be judging him as exactly that. And I think that's unfair on him, but I think that's the club that's put him in that position, not us.
Yeah, I completely agree. And when we discuss the outgoings, I think it is quite obvious that they've tried to get the squad younger. And I think this is why we've got frustrated, because whilst we've tried to get younger, we've let too much experience go that would have helped them develop quicker. But we'll get into that. So the other two signings were Marishta. Now, I apparently that's how it is said. Marishta. But I think you said he likes to be called Murray. Is it?
Murray, yeah.
Murray. So we'll go with Murray from now on. So we signed Murray. There was quite a lot of fanfare on this one. Everyone seemed quite excited. He seems very excited, a very likeable character. I think this one could prove to be a good signing.
Yeah, I don't quite know what's happened, whether everyone watches an awful lot of Polish football. whether they're big fans of the Japanese national team. I know Yuki's been playing, but interestingly, Murray hasn't. Or whether he's some sort of FIFA or Football Manager legend. I don't quite know. But there was a lot of fanfare for him. Seems like a real character. Seems like somebody who, if he was at work, you'd think he was a bit bonkers, but will put a smile on your face. Is it Naki Copter, but has been mistranslated at some point in his career, and it's now helicopter. I mean, if you've seen the clip with Dylan, who does the TikTok stuff, they bought him a hat with the helicopter on. He puts it on and he just walks into the ground with it on. Class. Love that. But I'd love it more if he was good on the pitch. And in the snippet I saw, I thought he was. Looked like he could handle himself, but he's going to have to do. 28, there's no settling in period for you, I'm afraid. You've got to come in and make an impact week in, week out.
Exactly, and especially when you come for a fee. It's not like a Sigurdsson situation. There is now going to be an expectation on you with age, with what you've shown previously, with the fee and everything. But he looks like he's got that character to deal with it. And he's the kind of player we needed as well. He's the kind of player that's going to get bums off seats. He's going to be exciting. He looks like he's got an infectious character. I'm quite happy with this one.
Yeah, it's taken the pressure off Cogbo a little bit to be the only creative outlet out wide. And it means that if actually, at the minute, Cogbo still needs to just come off the bench and be a 60-minute impact player when people are getting a bit tired, knocking the ball past them like he did at West Brom, I'm okay with that. And I think that just takes that little bit of pressure off. And we were definitely lacking out wide. So, yeah, great.
Going on to Cogbo, I think he could absolutely find a real niche part of his game, like be a niche part where it's coming off the bench when people are tired, absolutely flying at them, and it'll be easy for him. It'll be so much easier for him. So if I was him, I would want that. Then the last big signing that we'll talk about is Andre Goodjohnson, again around the £2 million mark. Are we excited about this one? Because we've been asking for a striker. We go and get one who has pedigree in his family, but hasn't necessarily shown it himself. He was at Real Madrid's youth level. He's played around a few leagues. He's played top level Belgium league, and he's not exactly fired loads of goals, but he has scored. He scored for Iceland as well. How are you feeling about this one? Because he seems like he's going to be built for what we need.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 9 goals in 34 games. 34 games for Iceland when he is, let me just double check, 23. It's impressive, yeah. So, yeah, he's 23 and yes, he needs time to adjust, but I'm almost putting him a little bit ahead of Tavares, who's, if you look at his career, has not played as much football yet. I think it said a lot to me about their opinion of Harry Leonard at the time, because you're not signing a young striker if you think yours are going to be good enough, which concerned me and that saddened me. However, do I think we needed to add to our attacking lineup? Yes, but I know you put a poll out there. But my option would have been if we'd have ended the window with Ohashi, Goodjohnson, and Leonard was actually involved, I'd have been really happy with this signing. The fact that he's coming to replace Leonard, I'm less enthusiastic. However, let's take it at face value. Leonard was frozen out, so he wasn't an option. We had Ohashi and Gay as options against Norwich. We needed another option. He needs to be the second option. He needs to push Ohashi. Looks like he's got the physicality for it. Looks like he's got a decent touch. I mean, if he's anything like his dad was a big unit, but he was a good player. He was quicker than people realised. Obviously, he spent a lot of his time at Bolton, then went to Chelsea, to Barcelona. Good footballer. But he's not his dad. But there's going to be comparisons. I mean, we've all probably watched his YouTube clips. He's decent in the air from what you can tell. He's strong. He can hold people up. So he looks like he'll settle into the Championship quite easy. Yeah, I can see the logic in it. 2 million's not a massive fee as well. We've got him on a decent contract. I'm okay with it. I think we needed to strengthen. He looks the right profile.
Well, before we talk about the departures, actually, talking about what you just said about contracts and stuff, and what you said about ages earlier, it's something that we talked about a few weeks ago, where we compared the players that were leaving to the players that were coming in and the difference in ages. It does seem like we have just tried to get bigger, faster, stronger with younger players that are on better, more friendly contracts for us, rather than trying to sign current players to new deals. So ultimately, the arrivals on face value, when I'm just looking at them, I'm okay. I'm okay with all of them. I think there's some exciting ones in there. There's some risky ones, but there's some that I'm not quite as happy about with the Sydneys. But there's ones like the Barages where I can kind of understand what we're trying to do, and I'm quite happy. I mean, I was relatively happy with the window. Other than selling Britain and obviously letting Dolan go on a free, obviously that was done quite early. I understood all the moves and I could justify the sales, which we'll get into. But the purchases, they all seemed logical, didn't they? They all seemed like there was a purpose to each player coming in.
Yep.
Murray, Good Johnson, you could see that they were exciting signings. And along with the signings from last year, things seemed like there was being built. There was this new ethos. And then the window happens yesterday and closes. And those last few hours, my attitude changed dramatically. Now, we'll get into the departures now. What was you feeling like before yesterday, before the window closed? How was you feeling about the business of who'd gone in and who'd gone out?
I didn't agree with their decisions that they've made about certain players. In terms of the outgoings, I understand that they want to go rough diamonds, polish them up, sell them high. I get that. I was relatively happy that we're spending some money. And we'll go on to it a bit more, obviously, now. But I can understand that. I don't agree with it, but I don't agree with getting rid of all the championship experience, is what I'm trying to say. But I understand the logic that just take it where we are right now, 12 months away from people leaving on a free. We don't want anyone to leave on a free. So I understand why they were sold. And right up until pretty much the same point as you, whether I agree with it or not, I could make a case for what they were doing. But I felt up until yesterday, we were short of championship experience in the middle of the park. And because Leonard was being frozen out, we were still short up front for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was relatively happy. I mean, we discussed last week about the lack of championship experience, but I was relatively happy with the moves we'd made. I could understand the logic, and we always try to find the positives in situations, or at least try and find some sort of logic in how things have moved along. But when yesterday happened and over 1,800 championship appearances have left the club, that's a lot of championship experience that leaves. And we'll get into the individual players, but instead of adding to the squad that we already had and trying to build something, we carried on with these risky signings. And like I said, I was okay with the risky signings because we had a base to put those risky signings onto. Now you've got certain ESC slots, you've got certain squad sizes you've got to adhere to. I completely appreciate that. You can't just keep everyone. But instead of adding to the squad and building for the season, it just looked like we was ripping everything out, trying to start again. And the transfer window yesterday closing said to me that the club were interested in making a profit rather than doing the right thing by the football. So ultimately, it's a football club and it's a business and they've got to run it their way. And I'll get into that later when we talk about the owners. But from a football point of view, this was the first time in the window where I really felt like they were just doing it to cash in on Hyam. So whether there was a window, he wasn't going to sign a contract or he was asking for too much money, and the club were like, do you know what? We've been offered too much money to turn down, and he's asking too much and we don't want to pay him that. Let's just cut our money, like cut it off and just get the money and run. But it's not the formula of a team that's trying to get better. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I can justify each one, but the Hyam one for me, I just can't justify that sale unless he was really asking for silly money or refusing to sign a deal.
No, I think for me, I felt, so I'm sure they possibly did, I can't speak for them, that we were using almost the players that we already had just for a period of time, but we didn't see our future. I think if you think of the squad depth chart, if they had this season's and then they had next season's, in an ideal world for Gestede, for whoever's making the decisions, Travis wasn't on there, Pears wasn't on there, Britton wasn't on there. So they either wanted them out this summer or next. Ideally, not all at once. And Ismail's almost said that kind of thing. Well, if you are Travis, Hyam, whoever, do you want to be used for a year? What they're going to do? Offer you another year just so they can make some money on it? I understand all of that. And I understand the club's point that we want to transition to a different way. We don't see giving... If they don't see, let's just use Travis for a second. If he's one of our highest paid players, and he wants now his biggest contract because it's his main. He's 27. He's coming up to the prime of his career. This is his biggest contract, and he's saying to the club, "Listen, have a grown-up conversation. I want my biggest deal I can get now because this is the last one. I'm not a Premier League footballer who's earned multi-millions. I've earned enough, but actually, I want to play." But I want to make the most I can because football was a short career and I'm in my peak now. What can you do for me? Well, we can offer you, Lewis, a slight increase on what we've got. I don't think they were even doing that because I don't think they saw him with us beyond next season anyway. I think they would have replaced, even if he'd have had 3 years on his deal, I think they would have replaced all those players I've just mentioned next summer. I think they'd have kept them this summer, used them for a year to not have the big turnover, and they got rid of them all anyway next year. And I think players probably knew that. What's really worried me is this transfer window, we've lost experience, reliability, characters, and we've replaced by cheaper gambles, whatever way you want to look at it.
Mm.
And we've lost experience that would have helped them as well. So we've not only have we lost that just in terms of on the pitch and around the place, the players coming in, we've not helped them now. I think we've also managed to shift a worrying number of homegrown players and home academy players. In principle, I have absolutely no qualms in selling what you think is a player's value. I think that has to be the model for us. If Smodix is at the peak value, Wharton is whatever, I get that. Never a qualm with that. But you've got to reinvest some of it and become better as a squad. I think if you look at Coventry, they've done that repeatedly. I've definitely no issue with getting money for players who would otherwise leave on a free. Absolutely not. What I have an issue with is when you're leaving yourself short of quality, quantity, reliability, robustness that they've talked about, and dressing it up as, well, this is for the future of the club. This is where we see it going. This is a project. But that falls down when academy products, I get Rankin, Costello and Buckley. They've had however many years, 25. You think that they're not now putting it, move them on. But the Leonard one stuck with me about this as well. The fact that Montgomery's pathway is going to be reduced. Tyjon's is going to be reduced. They're telling us it's for the good of the club, but then Michalski's not quite ready. So we're just going to dump Pears in the reserves anyway. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Todd's a better keeper. But we're cutting our nose off to spite our face with that one. The windows felt to me more about reducing how much the owners have to put in, whether that's the owner's directive or whether that's people on the ground going, oh, they're going to think I'm doing a really good job if I reduce. Well, actually, you were going to have to put 20 million in, but now you only have to put in 15 in. Aren't I doing a good job? And I also think it felt, and I've nothing to base this on other than the transfers, but it felt like it was an element of people desperate to make a name for themselves. I'm going to get these gems that nobody else has found in the world for little money, and we're going to sell them for a massive profit, and the team's going to be better. We're going to get rid of all these players on massive wages, and we're going to turn this team into a better team on less. Well, if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. And the fear is that gambling so much on these unproven players might backfire. And actually, you're not going to save the club money in any respect because it's going to bite us on the rear. And that's where I am at right now. And I wasn't at that until I started hearing the rumours yesterday. Yeah.
No, I was exactly the same. The thing is we've all played Football Manager, FIFA, Pro Evo, whatever, and we've all done the whole sell high, buy low, buy young players that are pacing. You just play, but football's not a game like this. It's not that easy. You know, we finished 7th last year, and most clubs would go and build on that and really try. And I feel like, I mean, we will get into the departures as individuals in a moment, but I feel like the way that it's been run is about making a profit and trying to get the players' sales to run the club. And we've said before that, you know, when you own a club, it's a folly, it's a hobby. Don't expect to get a return. And the goal needs to be getting the club as high as you can within its means and within the rules and everything. I do understand that, but giving it a fighting chance to succeed, giving it the opportunity to build and try and get as high as you possibly can. And we're not seeing that. I mean, this Indian government thing, I just feel like it's just an excuse now. I feel like it's just something there because we've seen a lot of money come into the club that has just been swallowed up and swallowed up and swallowed up. And I appreciate the fact that you can't have every single penny on player sales coming in to go straight back out to players being bought. I understand that. I'm not a spanner. As much as I look like an idiot, I'm not. And we've compared our club to others. We did all the stats. In fact, the Guardian and Telegraph, they copied our stats, didn't they? They used our graphic and everything. And we compared ourselves to other clubs that have been in situations with us. And we are the lowest spending club. And they keep blaming the fans. You know, we're not buying enough shirts. We're not buying enough tickets and stuff like that. And it's always the fans' fault. We're not the only club that don't have the stands being filled every single week, but it's not a pleasant place to be. The world's different. Now, you know, it's not the time where you used to just finish work, go get a cheap ticket, a cheap pint, meet your mates, and then go home after, after watching the lads. It's not like that anymore. It's expensive. And I feel like the fans are being blamed all the time when actually, up until yesterday, was the first time I looked at it and I thought, and this is what I said on my voice note. So on the voice note, when I said about that final day, I want something exciting. I wasn't talking about going and getting a Harvey Elliott style signing on loan or anything like that. I was just talking about there was no one I felt like needed to go other than Pears, and we'll get on to Pears. And that was for the sake of Pears' career. It's nothing to do with the guy necessarily, but it was just to do with the sake of his career because he will be a bench warmer now. But I looked around the squad. I was like, I don't want anyone to leave now. There's no one that should leave. My dream scenario was we started seeing some contracts signed with your Hyams and stuff. Has Hyam had this glittering Rovers career? No. He's had his moments which have been pretty horrendous, like some games. I think the Bristol one was the one that will highlight the most to us, where it wasn't showing Duffy levels, but it wasn't the best. But he was someone that we should have signed a contract for. We should have got that contract signed. We'll get on to the other players, but that was the one for me. And the Harry Leonard one is a big one. So should we talk about Harry Leonard first? So
yeah.
And he's made his Peterborough debut today, and he got an assist. But he was subbed off at half time, and I don't know why. But I'm glad he's gone and started the game at least. But Harry Leonard, he was always someone that reminded me of like a Jordan Rhodes kind of player. He just pressed well. We talked about how his energy, his movement, he had this instinct about him. That he just seemed like he could really develop into a goal scorer. But 21 years old. He wasn't exactly on high wages, academy product. He had 6 goal involvements in around 1,000 minutes of championship football. He's gone now to League One. So, you know, I know that they tried to potentially make it a loan, I believe. Was it they were trying to, and then they've just come in and offered money and they've just decided to go for it. Mm-hmm. But let's compare him to Gay. And this isn't going to be the Gay slag off session, but we may as well start here. But he's on more money. He's older. He does take an ESC slot, I believe. Mm-hmm. So he's taken one of those slots, and they're quite valuable for how we do things. He's got 12 goal involvements in 2,200 minutes. So a player there that's goal involvement per minute is worse than Leonard's. He's had more yellow cards than goals for the club. He's obviously been offside probably way more than minutes that he's played. But I know it's not a fine science, but there's something more there. There's got to be something more there, because why would you let Harry Leonard go? Now, we put a poll out, and I was really shocked when I saw you put it out that 51% of fans said that they would sell Harry Leonard, 36% would be a loan, and 12% said they would play him. Now, I understand the playing thing. He's probably not ready to play every single game. But I was really shocked at the 51% sell. How are you feeling about that poll there? Are we wrong?
I was really surprised. I don't know if people think he's older than he is. Some people have written him off because he has been injured and he's labelled as injury prone. Dispel that myth right now. The lad has had 2 injuries that are really unfortunate and not connected. He fractured his back, I believe, in a freak incident. He came back to pre-season training early last summer with Gilson, if you remember, got himself in great shape, was almost ready to start. He'd been out for a long time, so they wanted to give him some minutes. Started to get on the bench, came on, scored against Sunderland, made an impact off the bench, something Gay just doesn't do. So this is where I have an issue with a plan B and plan C, whatever you want to call it for Gay. Doesn't work. He got himself into a position where he was getting back in and around the first team under Eustace, and then in training, dislocates his collarbone, fractures his collarbone, whatever it was, completely unrelated and a freak accident. And again, it's not a hamstring that keeps going. It's not, now he's got a calf. It's not being soft. Completely unrelated, not his fault, not something that, all right, shoulders can dislocate, but not something that's going to recur like a hamstring all the time where you think, it's not going to work this. Just freak accidents. And he started playing for us. He made his debut in 2022-23. And I think this is part of the problem. People think, he's been around for ages. A bit like JLC. Do you know what? He's had his chance. He's gone. He's still 21. If you look at the chance that Mike Targay had when he came on against Birmingham, and he hits it straight at the keeper. Against Bradford. He played against Bradford, hits it straight at the keeper. Harry Leonard would have scored that. Harry Leonard will get more chances and more goals than Mike Targay if he played exactly the same minutes. Nobody will ever convince me any different. He's younger. No, he's one of our own. He's from the academy. He fits the style of football better, so you're not having to fit to him. I will not understand that one for the life of me. Cash in on Gay if you want to cash in. Don't cash in on him. In some ways, I hope it bites us on the bum, because I think he's a local lad who supports Rovers. To get him out the door is, I don't want the club to be hurt by it, but I want Harry Leonard to do well, because I think there's a player in there and he's a local lad. He supports Blackburn. I think it's a massive error. Massive error.
Well, it is feeding into the rumours that we've read today about Rudy Gestede, and there could be something there. But again, we don't know the facts, so we can't go into it. But right now, it seems like a very strange sale.
As a footballing decision, I can't make head and tail of that.
Yeah, there's more to it. And he's 21. He wants to play. I get that. Yeah. But surely he would have been pushing for a loan and not permanent. But it sounds like he was, by that last day, he was actually pushing for a permanent move. So there's something not right. There's something gone on. Because like you say, from a footballing point of view, to have Gay on the books, who's 6 years older, taking up one of those slots that doesn't fit in, that hasn't shown enough from us, for us, it's a very, very strange decision. Because Leonard would have way more value than Gay going forward.
Potentially as well, yeah. And you probably get the same amount of money for them now, at the very least, if not slightly more for Gay. But long-term, potential-wise, there's more money in Leonard. He's 21. He's an English striker. He scored goals in the Championship. He fits our style of football. It doesn't make logical sense. But if you
Well, when we
Harry
put the
Leonard,
poll out to compare like the sale of Gay to Leonard, 75% of people said sell Gay. So
yeah,
I think everyone just wanted to sell both.
and a few in the comments were saying sell both. But if you're Harry Leonard, we're led to believe he's trained with the 21s all season, not even been around the first team. Well, that's a demotion. That's potentially disrespectful. But it's also bloody frustrating if you're Harry Leonard when you're looking at people like Mike Targay and going, I could be doing the job he's doing. If I think he could be doing, as a footballer, you will have that level of self-confidence where you think, I can. Then you bring in Good Johnson, you think, I'm not going to chance here. Tyjon, the knocking in and around the team, whether it's just to get him to convince him to sign a contract, who knows? I can understand his frustration. I think he would have gone out on loan and been happy with that. But what you'd only be happy with that if you thought there was genuinely a chance you'd come back and then get in the team. We probably won't touch on him too much, but O'Riordan came in and out of the door in the summer without. Surely you want to have a look at him in pre-season. They'd made their mind up on him.
I do actually want to talk to you about O'Riordan. Put a pin in that because I do want to talk about that one because we've heard some really good things about him. I don't see the point in just going through the free transfers because obviously we talked about them in detail. I think some of them are frustrating. I just want a quick thought for each one when I say a name. So Dylan Markanday
would have done as much as Cozy Ajubu last year, but I understand probably time to make a change. 23.
Yeah. I think due to squad size and how we were trying to do things, there's people that have argued saying they would prefer Markanday to Hedges, and actually, I do kind of understand some people saying that. But yeah, he's moved on. Danny Bart, for me, I think like we said at the time, I can understand the contract situation. He's got to protect himself. He wasn't offering something. I think that McLaughlin will turn out to be an upgrade on him. What's your thoughts on Danny Bart?
I think the context is important. If you put him together with McLaughlin, I'm okay with it, yeah.
Okay, and Vyman, there's again talking about these rumours with Rudy dealing with Vyman. We can only go off what we were told at the time. Now, Vyman will go down as a cult hero just for that one goal, if anything. I know that you was a big fan of him. What's your thoughts on the Vyman one? Would you have him signed?
I would have had him signed. I think if you look back at the Norwich game this year, it was almost a carbon copy to the Norwich game last year. And we look like scoring not a jot last year again. On he comes, gets a chance, scores. With nobody in our squad right now who I have that confidence in, he would have done the same job this year. I would have kept him.
Yeah, and the trouble is would you have given him a 2-year deal? Because I think that's obviously what he was looking for, and we only offered one, if nothing. Well, I don't think we offered him anything, did we?
Rumours were that we offered that Bart wanted a 2-year deal, but he's gone and signed a 1 year at Derby, hasn't he? Rumours were that Hyam wanted more than a 2-year deal, and he signed a 2-year deal at Wrexham. So I'm rapidly ignoring those rumours.
It is difficult. Dolan, I just want to have a quick discussion about. Obviously, we've discussed him at length previously, but now we've seen what he's been doing at Espanyol. They seem to be quite happy putting everything out on socials, and everyone's getting really chuffed. It is a different league, but he's obviously playing with a lot more freedom and confidence by the looks of things. Dolan was one that he did split the opinions of many. We got frustrated with him because we knew he could fly, and he just had these moments of not idiocy, but he just wasn't playing how we wanted him to. But the logic is surely to get him tied down as early as possible. He's young, he's English, he's been playing well, he's got lots of experience in the Championship now. And whilst his form wasn't necessarily the levels which he should have been playing at, he showed plenty of glimpses that he had that potential. Now, surely the logic was to get him tied down, but it seemed very strange that one didn't get done at all. How are you feeling about the Dolan one now?
I can see both sides of it. I think we should have tied him down 2 years ago, and we probably would have been able to once you get into 18 months, 12 months. I think Dolan's he reminds me of Conor Mahoney's situation. And obviously, we did the interview with Conor Mahoney, but I think Dolan's was probably not about monetary value, but about where he sees himself in terms of the squad and where the club see him. And it almost felt like he felt he was one of the first choice players, and stats will back that up because he played almost every week. But I think the club almost felt like he did that because he was fit and others weren't, or whatever. And they valued him slightly less, it felt like. So I think he felt a little bit underappreciated. He wants to be the best person he can be in terms of on a football pitch and probably off the pitch. I can understand it from his point of view. The more, with where he's gone, again, the context is important. Had he ended up at Hull, different. The fact he's got his move there, I can understand it from his point of view as well.
Yeah, would have been nice to make some money on him, but he's gone there, he's doing well, and he's half proving us right and half proving us wrong. He's proven us right because we knew he could play like this, and he's proven us wrong because we felt like he just wasn't going to get there with us. He just seemed to have this frustration about himself. But I'm glad he's getting all this attention. I think he's a confidence player, and this will give him the confidence he needed to make that extra step.
I think if you made a compilation of Tyrese Dolan's skills and dribbles and things like that at Rovers, he looked like Carlos Villanueva did. Just be mindful that I haven't seen the 90 minutes of him yet. I've seen clips, and that's all they've seen at the minute. They're seeing the glimpses that we saw, but he's 23. We all thought there was more to come from him and more consistency. He played 200 championship games, or league games, championship mainly. Should have been tied down 2 years ago, top and bottom of it.
No, I agree. And social media can be a killer when it comes to these players. When you see when you see all these little clips. But no, I get what you're saying. So moving on to the ones that have actually left for some money. Joe Rankin-Costello goes to Charlton for a rumour just under $1 million. This one, it didn't hurt, but I knew it was coming. It was just a shame. He needed to tie down a position. We had our discussions about what position. You said right back, I said centre mid, and it turned out that he just couldn't necessarily play either consistently. He played on the wings. The JRC one was a shame, but I do appreciate why that was done.
I think the time had come for everybody. Yeah. And £1 million it's all right. I was okay with it. It was a shame is the exact words I would use, but it was I was okay with it, and I think a decent fee.
It was a decent fee, and ultimately, we'll talk about Callum Britton in a minute, but we had two effectively right backs leave. They were replaced with Lewis Miller and Ali Biosu. We'll discuss Callum Britton now, because then we can obviously discuss that. In fact, no, we'll talk about it quickly. John Buckley before we leave, and then we'll talk about the big sales. John Buckley, you was a big fan of him previously. He was showed glimpses very early on when we discussed that we were both seeing a player that could potentially do really well for us. He just didn't kick on, did he?
No, I think the time had come for both. Very strange move that he's made. I think there's very few players that you see at championship level that are always in space. He showed me that on his debut. I went to the Cardiff game away. Anyone else who went, your sympathies are mine are with you. When he returned from his loan at Sheffield Wednesday, came on the pitch and looked a level above everybody. Not from doing anything amazing, just because he had time when nobody else did. He was just playing simple balls. It looked easy for him. I'm not saying he's as good as Adam Wharton. Do not get me wrong when I say this. But he's a similar style of player in that the game looks quite easy to him. If he's always in space. He should have been our successor to... He's a poor man's Adam Wharton in that sense, and he should have been. But I still go back to when he was under Mowbray, and he played in the 10 role, didn't get enough goals and assists, granted. But he used to start the press. And I would have liked Ismaël to train there, because I think he would have really suited his style of football, because he read the game really well. For a skinny little lad, he'd come out of the challenges, usually winning the ball, but it was not going to work at Rovers. I think Eustace, Thomason, Ismaël, and on loan at Sheffield Wednesday, and he had about 100 managers there. Can't all be wrong. Something needs to change for him now, and I think he needed a move.
Yeah, we've got a decent amount for both JRC and John Buckley. I mean, it's a shame to let academy graduates leave or players that have played the younger levels for us. But we've got a decent amount.
Yeah.
It was a very much football manager transfer that he just goes across to Saudi Arabia. But it was great that he did score on his debut.
Yeah, but I think when I'm talking about academy prospects leaving, at 25, I think you give them long enough. I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah. No, exactly. The dream is that every academy prospect comes through, they all play amazing for the club, and they take you to the heights of football. That is the dream. It doesn't always work out that way, and some players, they will come and they will give you a big body of work, lots of appearances, but when they leave, you're just not quite. Not saying I'm not bothered, because that's really harsh, but it's like I just appreciate why they're moving on for them and the club. And these two just moved into that. And I'll be willing to roll the dice on Alabiosu or Lewis Miller over JRC. And John Buckley leaving covers a lot of the cost that Tavares,
a couple of years younger.
Yeah, who might show a few more glimpses. So I do appreciate the moves there. Now moving on to the big ones. So there's three big ones now to discuss, and that is Callum Britton, Lewis Travis, and Dom Hyam. Now, the first one was Callum Britton. We were big fans of Callum Britton. I was gutted when he went. For me, in my lifetime, I've gone from seeing the likes of Colin Hendry and Alan Shearer lifting the Premier League title, the highest prize in English football, to being upset that Dom Hyam's gone to Wrexham and Callum Britton's gone to Middlesbrough. And with all due respect to those clubs, to lose two form players to clubs that are at the same level or the same league as us, but considered a better move for those players, it was just a little bit upsetting. And the Callum Britton one, for me, it hurt, because he was a form player, but he was key for us getting forward as well. How did you feel about the Callum Britton one?
I think it took something away from our attacking wise, as daft as that sounds from a right back, but the way we play. I felt he was one of the best right backs in the league. But at the same time, I think we got a decent fee for him. And then when you consider the fact he only had a year left, I definitely think you did. And we replaced him, and we got two replacements in. So I think when you consider him, I'm ranking Costello going, and we got Miller and Alabiosu. I was all right with it, I was. I could understand the logic in that. I also have a bit of sympathy with the club, because 12 months ago, Callum Britton, we were debating his JRC, the better of the two. He wasn't fit every week. He wasn't performing at the level he did last season. My issue is then when he starts to perform like he did last year, tie him down, because you would have got him to do that in October, that sort of timing. Once we've got to the summer, he had to go for me. And the fact we then managed to get reported 3.5 million, I think we've done very well.
Yeah, and back in the Ben Brereton days, I always had that feeling that he was going to be a flash in the pan for us. We needed to cash in. He wasn't necessarily going to have this long body of work for us, and that he would need to move on. So let's cash in. But when it's a striker like a Schmodix, a Brereton, an Armstrong, and you're cashing in, goals, they're infectious. When they score in, more come, and they have that. They have that then a sellable asset then that you could go and cash in. When it comes to the right back, I just felt like he was going to carry on that form. I felt like if we got him tied down, he would have carried on, and he would have been our right back for another couple of years. When it comes to strikers, I kind of appreciate sometimes why you need to cash in, because they can dry up. Same with goalkeepers. When you get one that's really good, sometimes they can just go through a bad run of form and they're throwing it in. Right back, he was solid. The only thing with him was his injury record. but if he's not going to sign a deal, you just got to go. And like you say, 3.5 million is quite a lot. But I was a little bit gutted about that one. Lewis Travis. Now, Lewis Travis, for me, from a footballing point of view, I'm not that worried to see him leave. I thought from a footballing point of view, technically and so he didn't offer that much, but to lose his leadership and the one that could grab a game by the scruff of the neck, so the mental side of the game I'm talking about now, he was going to be a big loss. Now, the Travis that we know is someone that's a bit of a shithouse. He likes to really upset the rhythm of the opposition. He likes to get in the referees' heads. He likes to get in other players' heads as well. And I think we will miss that. But there's an element of me that thinks that he got a little bit too, I don't want to say too big for himself, but I think he felt he was a lot bigger as a footballer. I don't know how I'm trying to articulate. I need to articulate it a bit better, but for me, his level was probably someone that didn't play every single minute of every single game, but I think he thought of himself as someone bigger, and that's kind of why he started to get a bit pissed off, get angry. Things are going on in the background, so he got angrier about that, and the whole situation just became untenable, and he had to leave. I need to articulate it better. Hopefully you can.
No, I think I completely understand what you're saying. I think he's somebody whose qualities aren't the dearest of qualities. They're not qualities where somebody's dribbling past 3 or 4 people. They're quite Richie Smallwood type qualities. He was better than Richie Small, but they're all kind of, you can find them in most championship midfielders. They're their qualities. I think the loss with Travis is more about everything he brings around his actual on the ball stuff, and the fact that we've lost so much other of it compounded that right now. But I stand by what I'd said after the West Brom game, that he has to be bringing that, and if he's not, then he's not good enough. And
he's not the main character that he thinks he is sometimes.
And he can't bring that if he's not all in. And I think subconsciously, I don't think because of a lack of desire, I think his commitment to the club, ironically, I don't think you could question. And his willingness to play, would have played against Bradford. He was on the bench. I don't question any of that. But I think if he loses his edge, he's not Lewis Travis anymore. And he needs that. Some players can play without being fired up. He needs to be fully fired up. And for that, you've got to be all in. And I don't think he could fake that. However, he will be all in at Derby, and I have absolutely no doubts he'll be very influential for them. And it's a bit of a strange one, really. I don't think we would have been able to get that back from him at Rovers with everything that's gone on. I think at Derby he will show it almost immediately, and he will be very influential for them. But I don't think we had the option of having that Lewis Travis anymore. I think it had gone. I think whatever's gone on in the background with whoever, that Lewis Travis was not available to us, whether he was at the club or not anymore, if that makes sense. And he had a year left on his contract, 3.5 million. Again, I can understand it. I also have a bit of sympathy with the club again with this one, because 12 months ago, we were talking about, do you know what? He's not got in the Ipswich team. I'd probably let him go. 1.5 million, Luton were bidding, and we were talking, do we take that? We were debating it, whether we were right or wrong. The club will have been in a similar position. So I have sympathy with them not offering him a top earner wage for 3.5 years, 4 years, or whatever. At that point, again, once he started like a house on fire and he became pivotal by October, it should have been done again. Maybe it should have been done 2 years ago when he was pivotal, but he wasn't again because Thomason didn't rate him, did he? So I have a bit of sympathy with them on that one again. And this is why I say my attitude changed yesterday.
Yeah. And that's what we'll get into now, because the Travis one, I still understood that one. Anyone that's listened to us from the start knew that as Travis, we weren't necessarily Travis fans as a footballer, but we appreciated the fact of what he'd done for the club. like I said, I personally believe that he thought he was probably better than he was as a footballer, so wanted more on the pitch, and that's why he fell out with JDT. Was because he wanted to play. Was it he wanted to play the number 8 role or something? He wanted to play further up the pitch.
He wanted to be a sitting midfielder, and he said, "I am a number 6, and that is where my strengths lie." And JDT was getting him on the ball too much, wasn't he? Really, and he wasn't wrong at that. But anyway.
No, but we could understand that, and everyone was saying, "Well, we've lost the club captain and things." It's like, yep, that's fine. Club captains sometimes leave, and there's obviously things going on in the background that he's not happy about, and we'll try not to get into that too much. But yeah, carry on.
Just before we mention Hyam, I think we need to mention Duru as well, because Duru is another example of a young academy prospect. Rovers have said it's on loan, haven't they? I think San Diego have said it's until January with an option to extend, and we can make it permanent. Rovers haven't necessarily confirmed that. There's a bit of ambiguity around it. But Leo Duru, for 2 years now, we've been saying he's the heir apparent to Callum Britton. And seemingly, without anybody looking at him, they've binned him out the door. Again, give your own academy prospects a chance at the very least. This isn't a 25-year-old. He's 21, I think I'm right in saying, certainly 22. He's an American under-20 international. 20's not old, particularly for a fullback. He might not be ready for a couple of years. I get a loan for a year. Completely get that. If he does go permanently, can't get my head around that.
It's a strange one.
And when
I was going to bring up the 2 main loans. Actually, Duru being one, because of that fee. Do we think there's more to it there, or does he just want to go back, and does he feel like his international career would be better if he was over there? Maybe,
but if you're signing a 23-year-old and a 24-year-old and you're talking about this project for the future, tells you all you need to know, doesn't it, if you're Leo Duru? To me, if you bring in 2 fullbacks in and they're talking about promoting youth and they've been playing Montgomery there, if I'm Leo Duru, that tells me all I need to know. What I would want to be seeing as a club is I've seen enough of him in the 21s. I've seen enough of him on loan last year. He did okay. I know he picked an injury up. I said, 12 months ago, he was playing against Burnley, albeit for 10 minutes, and McFadden was coaching him through. But to then not even be good enough to be considered, if we're going down the route of let's have one experienced player and one coming through the ranks as his understudy, he had to be that understudy. Yeah. So that's why it frustrates me.
Yeah, and let's be honest, sometimes it just doesn't work out. I mean, Jake Beaty, we was all discussing, would be someone that would come in eventually and be a starter, and he's one that seems to be just frittering away as well. Maybe they've just decided he's not going to be good enough, and ultimately we need to trust, as fans, we need to trust some decisions. And if they're just saying he's not good, and it's the same with Harry Leonard. As much as we're getting angry, the club could prove to be right. He could go and have no career whatsoever, but the trust isn't there because of what's happened previously. We've lost trust, and because all these different projects keep coming in and we're hearing all this different crap out of different people's mouths, we're always overthinking things. So, like, if this was Greg Broughton making this decision and he'd been in here for a few years, we might say, okay, maybe Duru just isn't what we thought he was.
And I get that in isolation. I think my worry is that none of them are coming through, and we seem willing to give Henriksen 12 months or Ali Biosu or Tavares, but not our own who are even younger. And we dismiss. It's the selling them that worries me. We're just dismissing them and no, they're not going to be good enough.
And like you say, O'Riordan, he's gone out on loan. He was someone that we brought in. We thought he was going to be, he was going to come in and get his opportunity, but he was straight back out, and he's getting rave reviews.
Yeah, I think I understand O'Riordan going on loan because he had one shocking loan last year. He looked all right when he came in for us. I think what surprised me, I remember coming on at Birmingham in about the 88th minute, and his touch was there. I know they did rate him, the previous recruitment team and coaches. He's big, he's fast, he's strong, all the things that actually should still be working now. For me, the fact that he was able to control the ball and play a decent pass under pressure coming on the 80th minute, I think it was his debut as well. Fine. Showed me all I need to know about his attitude and his mentality. Had a shocking loan last year. Then second half of the season went back to Crewe, played on the right of a 3 centre halves. My question going into this year was, is he able to play in a 2? Because he tried to play on a 2 at Cambridge, I think it was, and couldn't get in. Gone to Crewe and he come back in a 3 and he could play. So now I needed him to go on loan and play in a 2. So I'm all right with him going on loan and he's doing really well. And that's great. And I'm delighted about that. He needs to come back soon and get a chance. But what I didn't understand was, as a manager, you look at the Premier League teams, they have them all in, give them a bit of pre-season. Why has he not been playing in pre-season for us? Just have a proper look at him. Let him see how you want to work and say, right, these are the things you need to go and work on. Go on loan, go and work on them. You'll come back and see. We've just, bang, out he goes. That's the bit I don't get. But listen, he's out on loan. He's having a great loan. Keep it up, Connor. Come back and get your place in the team.
Who signed O'Riordan? Was it Broughton?
Yeah, I think it will have been Broughton, but it was under JDT, wasn't it? So it will be.
I know, but I'm just wondering, is this the arrogance of Gestede that we can only succeed with his players? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll get on to that. We'll get on to that. Okay, so let's finish off. So the last one to leave was Dom Hyam. It came out of nowhere. There was links, and we was just like, no, can't happen. We don't have the depth. I mean, geez, centre back. I've seen more depth in the puddle. It's ridiculous, and it's a point where we'd all kind of prepared ourselves that the final day was not really going to do anything dramatic. If anything, it was going to be people coming in rather than going out. And suddenly we start to hear rumours Hyam's on his way, and it seemed to come out of nowhere and seemed to happen relatively quickly. I know it was all made official a bit later, but this one's, to me, is a shock. Now let's talk about Hyam as an individual. So I think when he came in, he was player of the year, very solid player, did exactly what we needed him to. We was talking about future captain. I think he was made vice captain. We was all very, very high on Dom Hyam. Then he had a season where he was a bit up and down. I think, like you said, all to do with the left-sided centre-back situation where he was playing. He didn't seem to play as well. He made quite a few mistakes. And there was a few people saying, well, maybe he's not the future. Maybe we need to cash in. Then last year, he was a little bit more solid. And then this year, he started very well with McElhenney. And it looked like everything was good. But there was no contract being signed. There seemed to be no talk necessarily that it was close to being signed. And then he goes to Wrexham. This was the moment for me. But the Harry Leonard one, if it was just Harry Leonard, I could be upset, but I could kind of appreciate it. But the Dom Hyam one, to me, it just seemed like we was just trying to cash in whilst we had the opportunity. And we wasn't thinking about the football side. We was thinking about the balance sheet. And like I said before, you can't keep running football like a balance sheet. We basically covered all the signings that we'd made with the sales before Hyam had gone. And we already had money to spend, apparently, on top of that. So it seemed like we didn't really need the money. It sounded like they just felt like he wasn't going to sign a deal, and they just was more bothered about the finances rather than the football.
Yeah. Dom Hyam arrived, got very, very steady. I remember watching his debut against Blackpool, Adam Wharton's league debut at the same time. Settled really well. There was an injury to, might have been Wharton, and Carter came back in the team anyway. Hyam moved to the left-hand side that season. Pears got in the team towards the end of the season, and Hyam didn't look anywhere near as good. Eustace last season spoke about when he had the captaincy, it really hindered him, that there was too much pressure on himself. He put too much on him. Played on the left-hand side, really struggled. Comes back in pre-season under Eustace. Captaincy's taken away from him. When he plays on the right-hand side, I've said this for 2 years now, with another centre-half that he can rely on, he's a very, very good, solid Championship centre-half. The boy has just played 50 consecutive league games. He would have signed a new deal. He's just signed a 2-year deal at Wrexham. I'm not telling me that he wouldn't have signed a new deal here. He's not kicked a fuss up. He was doing an interview on 4 days ago saying how happy he was that he made 50 games and he was here and blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with them, but I can make a case for every other one of the sales because they've replaced them. They've gone sold high. They brought these. Selling somebody with no replacement, leaving yourself short, smacks of people wanting to just go, we are not letting anybody leave on free, even if it makes us weaker as a team and puts us in a very vulnerable position. What they're going to have to do now, they've left themselves in 2 weeks' time with Carter, who's coming back from injury, might be fit, might not, but we know his injury record. Scott Wharton, who they're supposed to be easing back into the team, has been out for 14 months. And McLaughlin's injured. So that tells me that what they're actually going to do is Miller's coming as a right back. He's now going to be cover for centre half. And that will be the replacement. And then we brought Gardner Hickman in, who will cover right back, centre midfield, and Montgomery will do the same. It's not good enough. It's left us dangerously short of quality, dangerously short of experience again. But it's also left us. They talked all the summer about durability. They want people who are durable. They don't come more durable than him. 50 games in a row in the Championship. Absolutely nonsensical and very short-sighted. I think this is the one, and not because I think he's the most amazing footballer in the world, but because of what it represents and the fact they've not replaced him, will come back to bite them in the backside. And it's taken me from thinking against Norwich, do you know what, this is going to be a long season, to now genuinely fearing for us. Because there was a couple of seasons ago, if you remember, where we were scratching around for defenders and we ended up playing Pickering at centre half and others. We're nearly at that already, and we're 4 games into the season.
The free transfers are going to be opening, but who's going to be available that's going to be replacing the quality of Hyam?
No, they're not. And
we got lucky with Bart on a free transfer, but that you can't keep getting lucky.
No, and they've talked about planning all the time, that this is part of a project. If this was part of a project, they'd have had a replacement. We'd have had a 20-year-old Swede through the door. We haven't. This is for me, this looks like somebody's arrogance has said, in a meeting or whatever, I'm not letting anybody go on a free. And now they're having to follow through with it, or they're wanting to follow through with it. I'm going to make a stance. I'm surprised Tronstad hasn't followed him, if I'm being honest. And when I said last week, and people were talking about Travis and things like that, and I made a comment around, I could see another 2 going. It was Hyam and Tronstad, because I felt this was the way it was going. I feared it was. What I really didn't expect, though, that's really sideswiped me, is no replacement. I expected a risky replacement, and in fact, we got none.
I thought there'd be at least a proper centre half loan.
What we've got is Miller. And if actually you were doing it as a plan, and Hyam's coming, the bid's coming late, you're expecting $1.5 million, and it's coming at 2.7 million, like it's reported. I understand that, but then go out and say, right, do you know what? We've just got $1 million more than we actually thought we were going to get here. Let's go and spend £500,000 on a loan fee. I know that's wasted, but actually, in this occasion, we've then got 2.2 million for him. Don't leave yourself so short. It's idiotic. It's dangerous. And I genuinely fear we are now in a relegation fight because of that one decision. Not because of his quality, but because he's there every week. He's formed a really good partnership, and we've nobody to replace him. It's not that we've reduced quality. There's nobody. You're going to put a right back who's a sub right back at the minute as your replacement cover for him. It's not good enough. Carter and Wharton, listen, Carter and McLaughlin might be the best pairing we've got. I would have said that last week. Carter and Wharton might be the best pairing we've got. If I'm being honest, ability-wise, from what I've seen so far, if I could pick 2, even when Hyam was here, I'd probably pick Carter and McLaughlin. But Carter's not shown he's reliable. Wharton, it's not fair to put that pressure on him. So we've got Miller as a backup, who's a right back, and he's new to the league. It's just
it seems
blown
like
my
an
mind.
arrogant risk. An arrogant risk.
But it's a risk they didn't need to take. Like you said, they brought enough money in. It's a risk they didn't need to take, and I genuinely think this will bite them on the rear.
No, and there's people arguing on X saying, well, would you prefer him to go on a free than make a couple of million? Right now, yeah.
But that's not the
I
issue.
think the season could be very much gone for us by the next window.
Yeah.
And assuming we don't get anyone in on a free transfer and there's no youth player that just suddenly makes the step up that does something amazing for us, you are just papering over cracks, and putting, what do they say, square pegs in round holes. It's difficult.
Well, he's not played 3 at the back yet, but he might have to, because I know that sounds ridiculous because you're adding another centre half, but Miller can probably play on the right more. Pickering we've seen can play on the left. Ribeiro probably can. That probably suits them better than in the 2. But I will go back to the issue. I've seen people saying that. The issue is not that we've got money for a player who's going on a free. We've said that about Travis. We've said that about Britain. The issue is not replacing him. And if you are organised and planned like they said they had, you have something in the pipeline. And if it comes in this late, you have to make a decision. And for me, they've made the wrong one. I've no qualms selling players, getting money for players who are going on a free. My issue is leaving yourselves so weak. I already thought we were leaving ourselves weak, but leaving yourself so weak that you are now 2 unreliable centre-halves in terms of injury. And it's not having a pop at them. I'm just looking at the facts over the last 14 months. And another centre-half who was on the bench for Hull, who's done well since he's come in. But that's it. That is literally all we've got. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I'm just looking at the free transfers that are available at centre-back, and Kurt Zuma's available. I'm not sure how popular he'd be.
I don't like cats, but yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not that sure he would be one that we would necessarily go for. But there's got to be something. There's got to be some plan, and that's not me having blind faith. It's just, it seems like a majorly idiotic decision to have this without a plan. So obviously the last day of the window, they are going to concentrate on the ones that they had to get done that day. Now we're going to get to a point where they're going to start concentrating on free transfers. I'm still shocked that we still have pairs with us. I thought Gay would potentially go based on what we'd seen and some links that he had. But Hedges, I thought there was potential. Hedges could go towards the end of the window. But the fact that only Forshaw is the experienced player that signed a new deal, I want to see now some deals being signed as well. Because the thing that really scares me is when these players are leaving, it seems like we're seeing all the comments on their social media, like, glad you got out of Rovers kind of thing. Like, you see them all say, and we're seeing it from current players as well, like, you go boss it, mate, and all of this. And it's scary to see, because it's like, thank God you're out of there. When it used to be, why would you leave Rovers? It's amazing. I remember Salgado coming out and saying, I support Blackburn Rovers. Like, it's a family club. They all used to gush about the club, how amazing it was. And now we're just seeing all these comments where it seems like, thank God you're out of there. And that's what's scaring me.
Yeah, and the narrative, ever since I've supported Rovers for 36 years that I've had a season ticket, has always been, you can probably count on your hand how many have gone on to do something better. I am telling you right now, Lewis Travis will have a better season than he would have had at Rovers, and he'll have a better season than Rovers do. Callum Britton will. And that doesn't mean they're going up. They will all finish above us. Dom Hyam will.
Time's going to tell. I mean, ultimately, the question is, are we stronger or weaker?
Well, It shouldn't take too long to answer, but I'm going to just do it for a second. In the nets, I think Toth is better than Pears. I know he's not just come in, but we've lost Pears then from the bench because they're just not even playing him, so we're weaker there. Although I think starting 11, Toth's better than Pears. We're weaker in defence, numbers, quality. Weaker at right back, weaker at centre half. Left back's obviously the same. In defensive midfield, we've lost Travis and replaced him with an injured player and somebody who looks like he's not ready. Out wide with less options, weaker in attacking midfield because we've got Henriksen who looks like he's not ready compared to Vyman who used to come on and make a difference, and with less options in attack. So I think that's pretty comprehensive from me that we are weaker all over the pitch. And if you want to go further back and want to do it individually, we can. But I think they're all weaker. We've not seen enough of Johnson, obviously, and Henriksen individually, but I think we're weaker across the pitch. And also what worries me, Mike, is we might have got away with this with Ismaël, with Eustace if he was managing. I think Ismail's getting a bit of an easy ride at the minute. And from me as well, in my mind, I'm not focusing on him, but his record is shocking. And we need a manager who's going to pull a rabbit out of the hat this season. I'm yet to be convinced he's that man, but I don't blame him right now. I think he's been dealt a horrific set of cards. I don't like him to own Kyle. I know people are comparing their records, but I think Kyle was rudderless with a good ship. I think Ismaël knows what he's doing, whether we agree with his style and his whatever or not. I'm not asking for him to go. I'm not actually even considering that right now. I just think we'd have had a better chance with Eustace, and we're comparing like for like in terms of stronger. So from this season to last season, we're miles weaker.
Yeah, I feel like I like the fact that we've gone bigger, stronger, faster. I just don't think we've gone about it in the right way.
No.
I like the idea. It was something we called for quite a while ago that we needed it. We needed some pace. I think there's some signings that could be exciting. You know, Marishta, I think is definitely someone that we can get excited about. Strikers, you just don't know with Johnson. I'd like to think that he's got the tools to make it, but he can't be any worse than Gay. So as far as I'm concerned, that's an upgrade on Gay. Wings, I'm still concerned about. But is that because we haven't had the striker making the right moves? It's going to be very interesting. I completely agree with Ismail's now going to be under the spotlight because he's got his squad now. What free transfers come in, we don't know. What players potentially still leave, we don't know. But I think now we need to judge him. Now, attacking-wise, they've tried to give him something now. They've tried to upgrade for him. So I want to see more attacking defensively, whether it's his decision or not. He's had his legs taken from under him with Hyam leaving. So I think from a defensive point of view, if we start conceding more, I don't necessarily blame him, but I think there's obviously an element of it. But if we keep messing up in that final third, I'm going to get even more frustrated because we've actually tried to put some pieces in play there for him. I mean, it's a difficult one. I do think we're weaker as from a technical point of view, and athleticism will only get you so far. As we saw with Cargbo with that chance, you know, Leonard scores that, in my opinion. But what you've got, when we've said before, when you've got players, they've got technical, mental, physical. You know, these are the different things that you want to have ticks in, and we seem to have less ticks in the technical box than what we had in the others now. And that's the issue. I don't think it's all about experience necessarily, but I think losing experience means that these younger, faster players aren't going to have an arm around their shoulder and coaches on the pitch like we said McFadden would. So it's just going to be difficult. I think a lot of it comes from ownership. I mean, we haven't even discussed David Lowe. I mean, a coach that spent so long at the club and he just seems to have disappeared with nothing. I think that it's just the disrespect there is disgusting. Wagger, obviously, he left. He was getting a lot of pelters, but it seems to have carried on after him. So maybe Waggett wasn't the problem. Broughton was someone that we said that we thought was the future. He goes and things are all ripped up and we start again. Football in general is broken. It's a broken format. It's a broken business model. And it's not just poor Blackburn, poor us. There's loads of clubs that go through this. But I remember when all this started and we were protesting because we could see the writing was on the wall. The media came out and said that we were disgusting fans and we didn't know what we were talking about. Other fans were saying that we was a joke. I'd love to hear what those critics are saying now, because again, we every year is a transition. Every year, and we was excited about this year. We felt like we could build on something, and once again, we haven't taken the opportunity. But the one thing that's really scaring me, and I've said it before, is when players are leaving or personnel are leaving, there seems to be an element of, thank God you're out of that club, and that scares me.
Yeah, I think this runs deeper, doesn't it, than players, than individuals. It feels like there's a systemic problem. And when they are people who've been at a club for a long, long time, be that players, staff, there's a reason that that's happening. And it's not because two Hollywood owners have come in and think they're upgrading things and some things just have to move and, you know, that happens. But sometimes I think what's really upsetting me is there's a lack of class with it as well. Like the David Law one, he's not even had a mention. Steve Waggett was there for 7 years, whatever people thought about him. I think they're seeing now that he wasn't the issue. Could have probably told him that. But you got, what was it, two-line statement. It's not good enough, the way they handle the women's team. There's a lot wrong at the moment. And they've now recruited and made a massive gamble and put themselves under pressure they didn't need to.
Yeah, they've made a rod for their own back, and it's quite funny that they put out today saying, "Have you got any questions for the three amigos for their own podcast?" They're just, I don't know what they're expecting. I mean, ultimately, time will tell. You know, all this being said, we're supporters. It's all about the badge. It's all about the club. It's about the players. We will support those players as much as we will sit here and we will break down the football and we will get frustrated with certain players and we'll celebrate others and then they'll prove us right, prove us wrong, whatever. You know, we're in love with the club and we will always have blind faith every single week because it's what we do. And whoever pulls on that shirt will have our full support. But for me, you need to have that hope. You need to have that faith, because otherwise, what's the point? It's meant to be entertainment. It's meant to be something that we're meant to watch and enjoy. We're supposed to see the custodians of the club spending that money that tries to get us to the next level. We're trying to see them, like you said before, you know, they've talked, but it's the times for action. And everything, I'm not listening to what they're saying. I'm seeing what they're doing. And right now, what it seems to be, they're just bothered about the balance sheet more than anything else. And football can't be run that way. There's an element of it, but it can't be run that way. And what's funny is before the transfer window was closed, we put a poll out saying, do you have faith? And 60% of people said yes. And when the window closed, the poll went back out. We said the same question and 75% said no. That's how big a difference that last day of the window made, because it's what it represented. Like you said, it wasn't Hyam the footballer. It wasn't necessarily Leonard the footballer. It was what it represented. And what it was we're going to now cash in as much as we can to fund the club rather than spending our own money to keep the squad together and actually give this a good go. And that's what's pissed the fans off right now.
Yeah, I'd said I needed to see action, like you've said. I said I'd heard enough of words. Listen, I'm not writing it off. It might work. But I think you're relying on a lot of components coming together very quickly that probably shouldn't have to come together that quickly. For me, I've seen the actions And the actions of yesterday selling a player, leaving yourself short, with all the qualities that you want as a footballer in terms of durability, experience, we were already short of it. They've shown the colours. They've nailed the colours to the mast. And I appreciate your optimism that they might go and bring a free transfer in. They may well go and bring a free transfer in. They're not a cat and mouse chance anyone will ever convince me that the plan was, oh, well, we'll sell Hyam and we'll bring that free transfer in. Even if they bring one in, that is a reactive move, not a proactive one. I think they showed their colours with a Hyam one, that we are going to do this regardless. And I also think you probably hit on something before, Mike, that's would ring true, wouldn't it? That I am only prepared to have players that I have signed. I know best, and I'm going to show you. It feels like somebody is playing their own game of Football Manager, and that they're determined to look really good after it. And we had that criticism of Thomason at times, that he was playing his way, regardless of whether it benefited the club. I feel like that's happening right now. I might be wrong. We're emotional. It's hurting. It feels like we've put ourselves in a predicament and we're going to have a long, difficult fight when we didn't need to have one. Hopefully we're wrong. Hopefully it all clicks. Hopefully we've signed the next Cafu, Dennis Irwin again, Chris Smalling. Maybe we have. I'll be convinced when I see it.
I don't think those three names have ever been mentioned together.
Well, Chris Smalling and Dennis Irwin, haven't they? And Wayne Rooney, but yeah.
No, I completely agree. And the thing is there's a lot of arguments going on X, and we're not trying to instigate anything. These are our opinions. We're not trying to get clickbait here. All we're trying to do is talk about what's happened and how we're going to do going forward. Our gut instinct right now is that our mid-table finish that we were predicting is not going to happen unless we have a real good push after the winter window. But ultimately, we've spoken now for 2 hours, 10 minutes. We said it would be a bumper one. There was a lot of negative, and that's the general undertone of the fan base right now. And it was all because of that last day, and I just wish that didn't happen. I would love to have Britton and Hyam still in the team, and I think we would all feel different. If you put Hyam and Britton in this team right now, we would feel different. So I think there's an element of that, but we're not looking for arguments, but people put their comments down below. What do you think? What do you think of the window? How do you feel we've got better? How do you feel we've got weaker? But I think right now the fan base is very argumentative with each other, and we need to all be together.
Yeah, and what I will say is these players are going to need it because they are all young and inexperienced. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to be up and down. It's not their fault. This isn't me preaching to anybody, but they are going to genuinely really need that. It's not their fault what's happened. It's not their fault that we need them to perform immediately. I thought we'd finish 14th. And that was based on the fact I actually thought, as much as what I've just said individually and things, I actually thought the way we were set up as a team, we were a bit more solid defensively, partly because Toth is in the nets, partly because Hyam and McElhenney were looking really good and solid. But now that's been undermined, and that's not Ismaël's fault. I actually think he's going to get a bit of a free pass for a while because of all of this, and that's fair. What I would say right now, though, is whilst I said 14th, I thought we were going to finish, I would take 21st right now.
Well, people put down below, where do you think we're going to finish? What would you just take a relegation battle survival, or do you think we should be pushing more? Put your comments down below. But Mark, I think we should end it there before we start crying into our notes any more than what we have done. It's good to have you back on English soil. Your tan's looking quite nice.
Yeah, it's been a great time to come back. I'm really happy. Thanks.
Well, everyone, have a great week. Luckily, we don't need to watch Rovers. We can have a week off. Whatever you're doing, just enjoy it. Next week, we'll try and figure out what we can talk about that's positive. If there is something, hopefully we've got something positive to talk about. But like we say, keep sharing, keep doing all the good stuff for us. And make sure you comment down below your thoughts on anything we've talked about today. And have a great week.